Welcome back. Huge congratulations to Panelists for winning the pitching competition, and also Carousel and Fan Shifter for getting rewarded the runner-up competitions. But now it's time to talk about media. Chris Pfaff will introduce you to the next panelist and will run this show. So over to you, Chris.
Well, thanks, Henna. Thank you so much. And big round of applause to the Estopreneur, Gary Erb, for winning the pitching competition. As Henna mentioned, I'm Chris Pfaff. I'm the CEO of Chris Pfaff Tech Media, LLC. I'm based here in New York. We've worked with more than 45 Finnish companies over the last 14 years, mostly bringing them to the U.S. And we do quite a bit, for those who've seen me in the past at Arctic 15, in the media space. The media industry globally has just been on a tear in the last year. The pandemic has done nothing to stop it, and we've got three leading players in the European media VC and accelerator scene. We have, first and foremost, Melanie Schröder. She is from APX out of Berlin. Welcome, Melanie. Willkommen.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Yeah. Anna Jacobsen joins us from Bergen in Norway. She is, of course, the CEO of Media City Bergen. Welcome, Anna.
Thank you so much, Chris. Great to be with you.
Yep. And we have Nico Lumma all the way from Hamburg. He's the managing director of the NMA, Next Media Accelerator. Welcome to you, Nico.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Yeah. So just very briefly, I'd like each of you to describe what you and your companies do in the media space. And we'll start with you, Nico, just about 40 seconds or so.
Okay, the Next Media Accelerator is an accelerator that focuses on the media industry. And we invest in very, very early stage startups from all over Europe and Israel. And our focus really is the Nordics. And we like to bring small startups from the Nordics to the biggest market in Europe, which is the German-speaking market, and then make them big here. Our investors are lots of German and Austrian media companies and agencies, including Axel Springer, Bus Media, Funke Digital, and Der Spiegel, Die Zeit, and others.
Great, great. Melanie, give us a little bit of background on APX.
Yeah, happy to. So APX is we call ourselves a very early VC, meaning we do invest in startups. Normally we are the first investor in pre-seed rounds. We do actually invest industry agnostic. So we invest in all kind of companies, 50,000 euros. Then we work with them, offer them a big access to our network. And already did this now over 80 times. So our portfolio is now 80 companies and 4 to 6 joining every month. And the reason why I'm here is that our shareholders who actually give us money are Porsche and Axel Springer, already mentioned as one of the biggest media companies in Germany.
Great, great. Thanks for that. And Anna, give us a little bit of background on Media City Bergen.
Happy to, Chris. So we are a media cluster based in Bergen, which is the west coast of Norway. And we have our core competence within media technology, mostly virtual studios, robotics, broadcast, IP-based video, and different tools for visual storytelling. And we are around 100 members located all over the country with 9 different universities and colleges amongst the membership. So we work to enhance innovation between the players within the cluster.
Great, great overview. So let's start with a question which, of course, is on everybody's mind in the last couple of weeks on media consolidation. Media tech is smashing all sorts of legacy distribution models. Are we actually about to enter a new golden age of media investment in Europe? Melanie, what's your thought on that?
So of course you're right. There's a lot changing. I've been working in media now for the last 12 years, and so much change here. But also as you see, we see new distribution models. You see now users becoming creators, which is all very exciting. We from APX, we do invest really with a VC view, so really look at companies in a way of can they become a unicorn eventually. And I have to say, I'm maybe a bit more critical when it comes to media investment, because we do see media companies in Europe. It's still hard, to be honest, to convince investors to get a check before you have a working business model, only maybe user growth. So I definitely see there's a lot of innovation happening, and I'm really excited about this. But in terms of investing, I think there's still something to do here to really make it happen.
Yeah, Nico, what's your take on the state of things with respect to media investment in Europe?
I think Melanie really has a point. As the VC funds get bigger and bigger, they all need to have a unicorn investment, and that at the moment doesn't make sense in Europe, as most startups more or less just focus on one big market or two, and do not have a pan-European approach, and so the size of the startup is very limited, and so for a lot of VC companies, it doesn't make sense. There are VCs around that have those 20, 30 million funds, and for those, it makes sense to invest in media because, they're really good returns possible. But for the big ones who shoot for unicorns, it's probably not the media space at the moment.
Yeah, how do you see the media investing landscape right now?
I'm a bit more optimistic, actually. There is a lot of very interesting things going on, and the media landscape is changing massively. And what we see, especially now, is that media is sort of spilling over to different industries. In the media cluster, we have a lot of companies that work with everything from video recognition to digital infrastructure to 5G solutions and AI. And different solutions developed in the cluster companies primarily for media can also be applied within healthcare, within security, within seafood, and all kinds of industries. So I do think that there is a lot of going on, and there is a shift and a change. Still, there is also this is also a rapidly evolving industry that has been in a constant change and development for the last 15 years, with a pressure on their business models, which actually fuels innovation as well. So I do think that there are great opportunities for investors, and it's sort of a new ball game, I do think.
Yeah, it's great that you mentioned, sort of non-traditional media plays, because I think we're seeing more of that. And the fact that Porsche has invested in APX, the car has been seen for probably the last 7 or 8 years as the next living room, with respect to media. But let's talk for a second about European broadcast and cable networks and telecom operators. Over the last 20 to 30 years, they've really created environments that enable media innovation to flourish. How do you work with broadcasters and operators to create differentiated ventures? Nico, let's start with you.
We have various partnerships, mostly in Germany with the public broadcasters, NDR, which is the local one here in Hamburg, and SW on the south. And mostly we work with the team of Tagesschau, the biggest news show in Europe. And we have this thing we call easy testing, where we try to define projects between startups and corporates, and this is the case with broadcasters as well, where we try to figure out, what are their needs, how can our startup supply some innovative new product to them, and then they test it out. So they had content flow a couple of years ago for an interactive live session with the editor-in-chief of Tagesschau when there was this whole debate on fake news, so they used tech for that. They recently had the ESC, the Eurovision Song Contest, on all over Europe and all over the world, the biggest, I think the biggest music event in the world or something. And Scenic, one of our startups, was supplying their Watch Together technology so that people could watch together without having to meet because of the pandemic that's going on. And so, this is a really cool way to get our startups some exposure, and also help an organization be more agile and be more innovative.
Yeah, Melanie, how are you working with, again, with broadcasters and operators?
Sorry, I was mute. to be honest, it's not really a focus of us. We do work, of course, with Axel Springer and other media outlets, especially when it comes to talking about the success of our companies or helping them to connect. But other than this, we don't really, it's not really a focus of us, to be honest.
Yeah, and obviously TV2 in Bergen has been an incubator itself for a huge number of ventures. So, I think that I think it would be pretty obvious to assume that you do work with the likes of TV2, but why don't you tell us what you're doing with operators and broadcasters?
Yeah, that's correct, Chris. TV2 has been an incubator and has had that entrepreneurial mentality from the very start when they established themselves in Bergen in the 90s. And they have been sort of wanting to push the boundaries and wanted to use and utilize new technology to especially on the graphic side, but also for workflow and tools for digital storytelling. And they have they have spun out, as you mentioned, many companies over the years. But what we see now is that other companies in the media cluster, they sort of pick up that legacy and also continue this tradition of spinning out companies. And I do also think that the industry itself, the media technology landscape, is so rapidly changing that the broadcasters really need to be on top of the game. Just today, TV2 has launched a massive rebranding and restructuring of their whole operation. And they sort of need to work closely with different startups, creative people and ideas to constantly be on top of the game. And the competition is not only, as you know, local, it's global. And it is challenging to them. So the constant work with the broadcasters, both TV2 and NRK, they are key. Absolutely.
Yeah, they're key partners and not just ones that you've dragged along. Of course, we've worked with a couple of those spinouts, Never Know and Vimond, and of course VizRT, perhaps the most famous one. So it follows pretty naturally that you're helping to extend that value. So let's get to a question which I think is every week, at least once or twice a week, there's a big story about what the EU or the EC is doing vis-a-vis U.S. big tech companies, whether it has to do with data protection, fining them for various practices. But how do you position your startups in a media world that, let's face it, seems dominated by the big tech of Facebook, Apple, Microsoft, Google? Are those companies roadblocks or islands of opportunity for investment or acquisition, or both? Melanie, let's start with you.
So I would see them as the second, like really opportunities. Of course, it depends a bit on the company. So if a company comes to us and want to be the second Facebook, or if Facebook for a certain target group, it's maybe something where we would hesitate to invest because we just don't really see maybe the market or the potential. However, also having in mind these companies are big tech companies, so they have a great talent, they have great tech, but they are also slow. They are a corporate already, and there are a lot of opportunities where startups can actually much faster develop technologies and eventually maybe be acquired. That's not the worst case, especially for an investor or partner. That's definitely possible. We also had a partnership, for example, with Facebook last year, where we offered together with Facebook a program for older companies to really help them develop in certain areas. So there was also a great partnership, definitely for Facebook to come in, but also for us to leverage potential for the companies. So this is working as well. But I would not say don't do something just because they are the big tech companies, but people should be mindful what kind of company to found and how it fits in.
Yeah. Nico, what's your take on big tech with respect to your accelerator?
We work together with Facebook and Google and Amazon, and, we partner where it's possible. And obviously we have startups that do products that are, in a competition sometimes with those big tech companies, and that happens, and that's the way it is. But we can't really make the world we want in the way we want it. We just have to take it the way it is. And so one of our startups early on, Spectrum, worked with Axel Springer and got an investment from Axel Springer, and also worked very closely with Facebook, because they were doing bots on Messenger like 4 or 5 years ago. And that was only possible because of the Build DE connection and Facebook. And of course we collaborate on that. And last year we extensively worked together with Facebook on a white paper on easy testing, our procedure, how we connect startups and corporates, because for Facebook this also makes sense to work with us, because they want the media ecosystem to be more innovative. So there's obviously there's lots of competition going on, and we're in the middle of that, and we have to work with everyone involved.
Right. Good answer. Good answer. Anna, what's your outlook with respect to big tech with your cluster?
Oh, that's a story of two tales, of course, and that has two sides. But it is, of course, also great opportunities, and as you said, because they are there, and you can utilize the possibilities and opportunities that provides, and the efficiency, of course. Just an example, we have one of our media cluster companies, Mjol, a startup from Bergen, has recently, during COVID, set up actually a new TV station in New Zealand without ever being present in New Zealand. They did everything through the cloud, utilizing tools from Mjol and from VCRT, as you mentioned, and also a company called 7 Mountains. So they are just utilizing big tech to set up a whole new TV station. On the other side, there are these problematic sides of big tech that we're all aware of course, and the competition they provide for ads and business models for a lot of media companies. So I would say it's both sides, and there are great opportunities and huge obstacles.
Yeah, it's I've met 7 Mountains actually at IBC, the last IBC, which will be back again in December. So
right.
I thought that was very clever of the Dutch to schedule it during the Sinterklaas, so they can get even more money from people. So that's very, very wise of them. But yeah, I mean, you're in a position where, particularly because of your DNA with TV2, that you have incredible companies that are can just out of the gate provide value for broadcasters. But I think that certainly the way that works in terms of either working with or possibly being acquired by big tech keeps them healthy. Let's talk a little bit about your sort of specific portfolios, because I think it'd be useful for people to know some of your recent successes and some of your recent portfolio investments. And Melanie, you're in a very interesting position because, of course, institutional VCs, and particularly we found in Europe, haven't necessarily flocked to the media sector for investment. So you're in an unusual position as sort of a strategic and particularly early stage. Who are some of the, or what are some of the recent companies you want to tout?
Maybe one aspect that's quite important is we don't invest just in media companies. It actually was a quite strategic decision from Axel Springer to form this fund together with Porsche and not invest just in media, but just invest really widely in the end. And there often is the question why actually, but there are a lot of interesting opportunities coming out, especially also for Axel Springer. Of course, we have ad tech or marketing tech in terms of advertising. where also a company now that we invested in was acquired by Axel Springer, and it's a great synergy. But to be honest, it's not what we target at. It's not that we are basically scouting for our partners to find then the next company they acquired. This was just a lucky coincidence. But we can also see that there are a lot of companies that like to work together with someone like Axel Springer or Porsche, what we're talking here about the media, and can really then develop their products further. And what we don't do is media in the typical sense of content that will be monetized, because I also thought about is it actually media what we do? But we actually do have a lot of interesting companies. For example, one is called Colossian. They do deep fake detection of videos. That's something super relevant also for someone like Axel Springer now. And maybe it's not media in the typical content sense, but it's interesting. Or we have a company called Tucan. They actually started with us as a podcasting platform. Unfortunately, kind of figured out it's not the biggest business model, but now they have a great new product where they use their technology they developed and can actually do now a speech-to-text transcription. So you can use it for your next meeting or for an event like this and let it just run, and then it will give you a nice nice description of the meeting. And that's something journalists now use as well or test, but also can be used in different industries. And we think that's quite interesting to find solutions that might be interesting for Axel Springer, but also test different solutions and have the media company as one use case, but maybe there are others. That's I would say is our focus here. Data, we also said data privacy. We have a company called DataC, also just raised a round in the US with exciting investors. And there it's all about giving the user back the empowerment over their own data on the internet. Also super interesting. So in the end, it's really also how you define media. And there's a lot of interesting things out there.
Well, this is the thing. I mean, if you're investing in the space, I mean, what is media today? That we think is fairly new. I mean, TikTok will be seen as like MySpace in a couple of years. It's just the inevitability of media, and that's following a certain pattern. But that's great. I mean, it might be helpful if you can put some of the names of the companies you mentioned into the chat line so people can pick that up. So now you have some homework, Melanie. So Anna, talk about some of the stars of your media cluster. I know they're all superstars, but give us a couple that you would like to tout specifically.
Well, you obviously know VSRT. It started in TV2 and has grown to a world leader within visual storytelling tools and virtual studios. They have, I think there are 700 employees at the moment, and VSRT Group also has a company, NewTech, and NDE, which is a game changer, of course, as to the broadcast environment. We have VMod, who is an OTT platform delivering tools to most of the world and in all continents, including providing the platform for iFlix, which is Netflix, the Asian version of Netflix. We have companies like MyReese, who recently set up the first ever virtual royal visit from Norway to California with a live virtual broadcast from Oslo and California. We have a lot of really cool startups with everything from we have like Factiverse, who has a plugin to detect fake news. We have Visualist, who uses AI to conduct compliance check for media content. We have Mjol, as I mentioned, with video recognition and archives, meaning that you can finally monetize on your archived content. There are Ease Live, which is online live graphics for broadcasters, and I could go on. There is a lot of very interesting companies here, for sure.
Yeah, no, it's really great because you have got a lot of cross pollination. We just did some work recently with Visualist, and of course we know Miguel from Vermont. But why don't you put the names of some of those companies in the chat line, like Visualist and Mule and others? That'd be very helpful. So Nico, talk to us about NMA and some of the companies that you're seeing in recent cohort, because you guys have been around a little while, and it'd be great for people to know a bit more about your portfolio.
Yeah, we have done 77 investments in the last 6 years, so I could tell you something about each and every one of them. But from Norway, they're doing a podcast solution for publishers, and it started in Bergen actually, and because one of my colleagues was on a trip to Bergen, and they met at Media City, and so we invested. They just went live with a local newspaper here in Hamburg, and it's really cool because they now have an awesome podcast offering, and it's powered by a Norwegian company. And we have done many more. I think I mentioned Content Flow already, which is live streaming as a service used by the ESL, the Esports League, and also I think by Red Bull Media House and Tagesschau and lots of others. And I mentioned Scenic already. We did Atriba, which is attribution modeling as software as a service, used in Germany by companies like Flixbus and others. So a really good marketing tech. And we have done the Lunicorn in Oslo, which was really interesting because it's more content than tech. And we've invested in a company called Seratai out of Stockholm. They do a diversity dashboard so that broadcasters can analyze their videos and find out how diverse they really are. And they did a check with the German Tagesschau and found out that the most diverse person they had was Linda Zervakis, which is a German-born announcer with a Greek background. And that was it. And other than that, it was white male Germans interviewing white male Germans. And that led to lots of new discussions inside of Tagesschau and how to do, how to deal with that. So that's a really interesting investment. And another one I would mention is Attention Insight, which is doing heat maps as a service. So instead of having a focus group that looks at your website or an image, you just pipe this through AI and get amazing results. And then last but not least, it's Iconics, which is doing everything around video and AI. So right now they're doing lots of live transcription stuff for broadcasters, and have probably the best speech to text solution on the market right now. And they're doing translations on the fly as well, which is really cool.
It's great. Yeah, so some great companies. And again, like Melanie and Anna, if you can put some of those company names in the chat line so people can learn more about your portfolio. Let's talk about some recent news, because I just think that this is something that is of some key interest here. There's been a lot of headlines recently, particularly in the U.S., of course, because AT&T has shed Warner Media, which is going to Discovery, and Verizon has shed Verizon Media to Apollo, and BT is about to shed BT Sports. So are telcos not good media investors, or does it really matter? What's your take on that, Anna?
Sorry, I was muted there. I think they can be excellent investors, and telco and media is really emerging, and they have taken on new roles, and with the new technologies, there are other options. What is an issue in Norway is that it is extremely lucrative, way too profitable to invest in real estate. That is a huge problem in Norway, that sort of makes it really difficult to have investors for scale-up specifically.
Yeah, and Melanie, what's your sort of take on the operator scene, particularly in Europe and Germany?
So we're doing mostly early stage. I haven't seen many of them yet, but also in our later deals, they didn't really come up, to be honest. The only one I would say is Telefonica with Viral Accelerator here in Munich, in Germany. And yeah, I think they do a great job there. We have a couple of co-investments and our companies are happy to work with them. Yeah.
That's great. Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned Wyra because they've just done some interesting investments that I read about recently. Nico, just quickly on the operator scene, what's sort of your take on them?
I think it's all a big misunderstanding. Telcos always think that they can own more than just the dumb pipes. And then they try to do content, and then the management changes, and then they sell all the content stuff, and then management changes, and then they think they should own content again. And it never works. It really never works. And they will never understand this. And they always burn billions in the process, and we all pay for that with our mobile operator fees. It's insane. But they will never learn.
Yeah, well, I tend to agree with you, but yeah, I tend to agree with you. I just think that maybe this is their last lesson here. But again, it's sometimes nice to get those extra content deals, but maybe they don't need to spend 50 billion euros to do that. So let's talk. Just change the subject here. We're coming out of the pandemic slowly but surely. The vaccination rates here in the U.S. keep going up. We'll, hope to be in Europe by the end of the summer. And I think, that's changing the way people are looking at their plans for the next year. So let's take a look at the last 12 months from your position, with particularly early stage startups. Have you seen more efficiency, more innovation? What's been your kind of overall view of the scene with the founders you work with and even just your own teams? How has that changed things? Did you gain new insights? Anna, let's start with you on this.
Yeah, there has obviously been a lot of opportunities and also we are currently running 2 large EU projects together with the other innovation hubs in Europe, Media Motor Europe and Stadiums, driven innovation in European media. Both of them providing coaching and mentoring for startups and scale-ups within media and media technology. And Stadium also providing funding for the best of them. And what we have seen is tremendous interest for joining those kinds of programs during COVID. And we have had the first open call at Stadium recently had a massive application with extremely high quality startups and scale-ups from Europe, which is so promising and so fantastic to see. And of course, the whole scene is different in terms of the people cannot meet. It is difficult to do innovation by Zoom and Teams, and we cannot travel, and we shouldn't travel as much as we need to have greener conversations. But still, there is has been a huge growth, and I do think that this situation has forced more innovation, more startups, more ideas, and a lot of really great companies that are coming up now.
Yeah, thank you for that overview, and particularly with respect to the greener side of this, which I think a lot of people have been able to reflect on. Melanie, what have you seen both within your team as well as portfolio in the last year during this pandemic?
Yeah, sure. So, of course, when it all hit Europe, I would say in February, March, no one really knew, especially from the investor perspective. Everyone was busy checking in with the portfolio, making sure they don't run out of money, everything is working. And we also, we get a lot of like inbound deal flow. And we also saw a drop like in April, May, and we were really worried, will this work out? What was our business model? And then like during the summer and after the summer, it just went up. And now I would say we see more startups at least come like working with us than ever before. And also especially when it comes to this follow-on investment, like VCs or also angel investors looking into companies, we are like at a huge peak at the moment. And the pandemic made this possible in a way that, I mean, of course, it's a shame we can't meet personally anymore, but it's so much more efficient. Like investors are now used to spending millions without meeting the founders ever before. This never happened before. And it's really speed up the whole investment process for sure. And of course, if there's more money, there's also more innovation like to be funded, which is definitely great. So we actually saw that kind of our business model benefited almost from, it's hard to say this, but we didn't suffer. Also the team, of course, was hard to work remotely, and we normally have a huge co-working space with all the startups that we invested in. This all now we have to do remotely, but also this works. So yeah, we also have to see what we do now after the pandemic. If we go back to before, if we do something like a hybrid model. I think we're not the only ones, of course, with this challenge. So that's my take on it. And maybe another thing is we saw some companies, as I said, we don't invest only in media, but we saw a lot of companies, especially in the education space, that suddenly got momentum. Companies we invested in 3 or 4 years ago, they were fine, great founders, but they never really got momentum like traction or investor interest. And suddenly it happened and they raised amazing financing rounds, great KPIs. And I would think and hope this also will happen to media, that for some business models, maybe the timing is now right. And we can see that during the pandemic, people are more than ever were interested in news or in information, like the online usage of media just went up. And I have a lot of hope that this will also lead to a new business model, like actually charging for media for good content will become more normal. That would be my hope.
Yeah, I look 100%. I'm with you on that. We're involved with some virtual music opportunities with MediaKind that we're trying to push, and we think that that's going to be something that continues post-pandemic as a hybrid model because we're leaving a lot of money on the table. Nico, tell us about the last year from the NMA perspective in terms of dealing with this pandemic.
Well, as I don't like meeting people, for me this was a perfect year. I just stayed at home. No, just kidding. But I had my first business lunch today after about, 9 months or so. I didn't really know how to do this, but somehow I managed and ordered the right things and could talk while I was eating, and I didn't have to do the dishes afterwards, which was also amazing. But aside from that, we had some clear winners in the pandemic, like, all the video startups, obviously. And also we had some losers, startups that were doing something, to reorganize newsrooms, to do new sorts of project setups and all that. There was really no time for that, at least not in German newsrooms, to deal with new ideas. They just had to, cope with the pandemic, cope with working from home, and were not so interested in new workflows and stuff like that. Having said that, as the year started and vaccination also started, and people are really looking forward to the end of the pandemic and starting to invest more in stuff, buy products, and so I think there's a huge opportunity this year to do a nice rebound of the economy, and the media will be part of that. In Germany, there was a dip of about 80% in the advertising space, because travel and events and restaurants and all that didn't happen or were closed. And so this coming back now obviously means the customers have to, do lots of stuff now because we couldn't do that for a long time. And so this will affect media, and this will be a great, nice rebound now. Yeah.
Yeah, I like the optimism, and I agree with you. I think that we all have talked about the fact that consumption of media has been at an all-time high in the last 14 to 15 months.
But you know what, Chris? The crazy thing, at least in Germany, is the subscriptions for paper also went up, and that's like totally nuts in my perspective.
Talk about that. Please talk about that.
I thought this is the year of digital, and then people subscribe to paper because they want to know more about the pandemic. It's like, why do you want to read stuff from yesterday in the morning in paper? But people did. So it wasn't really, for companies that relied on advertising, it was a bad year. But those who didn't had a good year. Just talked to a friend of mine at Bauer Media, which is a really big magazine publisher. They didn't feel that. They didn't feel a dip. My take really is it was hard for old-fashioned organizations with lots of hierarchy, because all of a sudden you have to work in a network environment. You have to trust. You have to trust your people. I mean, what an insane idea! And they had to do this within like 2 weeks of. They had to order laptops to get the newsroom going during home office, and that's good. They had to learn that.
Yeah. New behavior is sometimes hard to learn, but I think we've seen a lot of good learning, and you have given a lot of good thought here in terms of what might work in terms of media, as well as how to do some really good scouting for early stage. This has been a great conversation. We could go on much, much longer, but unfortunately I have to wrap it up now. So I want to thank our panelists, Melanie Schröder, of course, from APX. Thank you, Melanie. Anna Jacobsen from Media City Bergen, and of course Nico Lumma from NMA. I'm Chris Pfaff. Thanks again to Jan and Hanna and the entire Arctic 15 team, and we'll be seeing you again.
Have a good one.